explain to the fan base what it takes for an organization to draft a left-handed quarterback. And I don't know. I've discussed everything from the left tackle now being the right. That's your backside guy. He's got to get the money as well. Does that roster have those capabilities? Is the play caller cognizant enough to understand the hashes matter with the lefty, especially on third down? If I got to sprint him out on third and long, I got to make sure I get on second down to the right hash. There's a lot of things that go into it. Explain that. And Bailey, can you bring up the film while we do so? I'm gonna pull up Tua, Shaun, just for comparison standpoint. Just so we can kind of show just so we can kind of show a comparison of what a lefty is going to look like in this draft in Michael Penix.
So let me first say, I don't think it's as significant in the National Football League as it is in college. If you notice these hashes, right, you see where they're at, the left and right hash are basically both in the middle of the field.
Yep.
In college, that left hash is 5-6 yards above the numbers, and that right hash is 5-6 yards above the numbers. So the opposite field throws are significantly longer.
Yeah.
But every organization, when you take away the owner, has three pillars: the GM, the head coach, and the OC. And a lot of those guys have a lot of ingrained habits, quirks, and most of them have never grown up having a left-handed quarterback. And in a perfect world, they just rather have a conventional one. So when there is an option and the kid's left-handed, everybody's got to be on board. Everybody's got to be comfortable with it. If you notice, the Dolphins organization was more comfortable with Tua than their former head coach was. He didn't like Tua at all. McDaniel got the opportunity to get a head coaching job, and he just embraced everything.
Yeah.
Now, if you're the Dolphins, to me, it's not so much about Tua being left-handed. It's about, is Tua really good enough to win you a championship? Because I think he's a marginal athlete, and I think he has marginal arm talent. He makes up for it sometimes with anticipation and football IQ, but just from a skill standpoint, I don't view Tua as a top half of the league quarterback.
Me either. So speaking of drafting a lefty, I just want to go through these teams before we show a little Tua and explain the difference. Of course, there's a difference to him and Penix. I think Penix ball's livelier, his arm's livelier, but obviously, what team would Penix fit? So Chicago's probably not happening. You got the Commanders at 2, the Patriots at 3, Arizona, unless they're ready to part ways, I doubt it. Probably not taking a Q. Chargers aren't taking a Q. In essence, the Chargers really got the number 1 pick in this draft, in my opinion, because they're not taking a Q.
The Cardinals, though, probably, right?
You got the Giants at 6, Tennessee at 7, Falcons at 8. They're not taking a Q now. Bears back at 9. Jets aren't taking a Q at 10. Minnesota at 11. Where does he fit, knowing any of these rosters, as far as does my left tackle that we both know don't want to play right tackle? They don't care who the quarterback is. I don't want to move over there, and I better get left tackle money at right tackle if my QB's left-handed. A lot of cats don't talk about that. Where are you at with what roster can actually suit Penix?
Well, here's what's going to be interesting. If nobody trades up, 11, 12, and 13 are interesting. You're talking about the Vikings, Broncos, Raiders, back to back to back. All who probably would love to have one of these young quarterbacks. So to me, if nothing happens at the top of the draft from a trade standpoint, that's where it gets really interesting. So I think Penix is better than Drake May. I think Penix is better than Bo Nix. As much as I think JJ has all the things it takes, I would take Penix over JJ just because I think Penix is so much more talented. Like that kid, man, if he didn't have those injuries, and he's played the last 2 years injury-free, but if those injuries weren't in his portfolio, then people be talking about him at number 2 because I think he has that kind of talent.
How much does the injuries plus being left-handed magnify the GM's decision on, all right, he's a lefty, southpaw's rare. We've seen there's only been a few Steve Youngs, a few Mark Brunells, a few Boomer Esiasons. We haven't had a ton of great lefties. We've had some good ones, but I'm just saying, is that going to weigh on this decision too?
Yeah, it gives you an out. And the fact that he's 24. So, I mean, if you want to eliminate, if you're having trouble creating the order for the quarterbacks, you want to eliminate one of them. you got enough things people inside the building probably will agree on to push Penix down. So that way, if you don't take him and he turns out to be the best of this bunch, you can say, well, he had the 2 knees and the shoulder, and he was a left-handed. The OC didn't like it. He was 24. So I mean, you can talk yourself out of that one.
Right.
But the talent's undeniable.
Let's show some film in comparison to what it'll look like for Penix. Obviously, it won't be on this team, and then we'll get into some CJ Stroud in Houston real quick as a new person to break down. But this is on the left hash, basically in the NFL, which, like you said, doesn't really matter. But it's also, this is a first down play. They're an empty. Obviously, the protection changes, which a lot of people don't want to talk about. And I broke it down last week. When you're a left-handed quarterback, you need to put your hot or side adjust in his throwing hand, which will be in his left side, and now slide everything away to protect the backside compared to what we usually would do with a righty. We flipped. It's a big thing that no one talks about. So now we got to orchestrate and change a lot of shit as a play caller and as a schemer. I don't think anyone understands that. So on this side, for instance, the guy walked up is probably the 4th D in, but clearly there's nobody coming on that too high look. But if that safety were to roll down there, his hot now needs to be on his left, which we're already on the left hash, which now you can drop a defensive end, Shaun. You can play a little bit of games, fire zone him. And doing that to a rookie is a lot easier to do it than it is Tua. So I don't know what you see in all this, but like Penix has to be ready to know the decision just like Tua just did. And all right, I'm an empty. This is what I got. I don't got to re-ID the protection. I don't got to slide it no particular way. This is who it is. A rookie as a lefty, probably going to a place that he's probably going to play fairly soon in, right? You would think. Right. Do you see any problems by drafting Penix, and does Shaun King stay away from Michael Penix in this draft?
I don't. And let me say, Mike McDaniel's passing game, their spacing is some of the best I've seen. And by that, the routes don't crowd each other. Everybody has a way. This is just terrible defense. Like this safety that's in the middle of the field, I have no idea what he's doing.
It's unbelievable.
I have no idea what he's doing.
There are 2 safeties right next to each other.
Right.
That's just terrible defense.
He don't know what he's doing either. Listen.
Yeah. Because they're obviously in man, and they're not in 2-man because the guys aren't playing inside. So he's obviously supposed to be robbing the middle of the field. That's just terrible defense.
And now,
to the left-handed quarterback thing, I think where it comes into play is a lot of these guys are lineage coaches, meaning they grew up under a certain coach, whether it be Andy Reid or Sean McVay or whoever. And a lot of those guys have certain tendencies. For instance, like I can tell you, most West Coast coaches, when shit hits the fan, they're in the red zone, they need a 2-yard completion, or they're on the 2 or 3 yard, they're going to run Q8. They're going to roll to the right and a 2-man surface, run the return route outside and the quick out inside. That's what West Coast guys do. So where that gets you out of your comfort zone is now you got to call it to the left instead of the right. And it's just little things like that. When you
everything's opposite, it seems like, yeah.
Right. When you call bootlegs and play action passes, like, some of those things, the left-handed guy's going to be more comfortable going against the traditional way you've called them. So it takes a little learning, but I think the talent, if a guy like Penix is worth my OC being a little uncomfortable, having to be more cognizant of calling certain situational football plays.
Yeah, good take.